Yo, what is good, Jets Nation? It's your boy Richie, and today we got a special guest joining the show to give his thoughts all about the New York Jets 2023 draft class and to talk about the buzz around the Jets surrounding Aaron Rodgers. There's been a lot of hype surrounding this New York Jets team. The fan base is ready to go. I cannot wait for training camp to open up later on in the summer. Welcome to the show, the one and only Jets Central, baby.
Richie, what's up, man? How's it going?
I'm doing great, man. I was talking to you right before this. Last time I had you on, we were recapping last year's draft class, so it's only right to get you back on here to talk about this year's draft class.
For sure, man. I'm excited. I felt like this class it wasn't like the flashy class, kind of like last season and, the whole Zach Wilson class, obviously, but chock full of good quality players.
Yeah, it really was, and that's a great way to put it. Last year was like the splash, the highlight reel, and it backed it up because what happened? Oh, two Rookie of the Years to Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. So what's your overall thoughts? Let's get right into the 2022 draft class. Obviously wasn't fully star-struck. The first round was kind of shocking to some. So let's start off with Will McDonald, and then we'll go down the list there. So what was your overall reaction? I watched your video, but what was your reaction when Will McDonald was announced, and then when you kind of got to digest it a little bit more, how do you like that pick?
So what's interesting is like going into the draft, I really like Will McDonald. Like I thought he was a good quality player. I actually watched a lot of him at Iowa State. He's a guy who could bounce around the defensive line, high upside, has a solid resume, tons of experience with the Cyclones, tons of tackles for loss, sacks. Like I really liked him as a player, but I didn't. So he played in like a 3-3-5 defense at Iowa State, and I wasn't really expecting the Jets to go with like another edge rusher because we already have like a lot of money invested in Lawson. Huff had a solid season. John Franklin Myers is getting paid a ton of money. Jermaine Johnson was a first round pick last year. So I was thinking like edge probably wasn't going to be the pick. To me, it was O-line, but all four offensive linemen were off the board. So I was thinking like, okay, trade back. But of course you need a team to want to come up, want to move up in the draft. And that obviously wasn't the case. So, as far as a fit, I think it's like good to like above average. Like, but again, like the player individually, I really, really like. I felt like with certain teams out there, Will McDonald would be like an A+ pick, based off of like scheme fit and whatnot. But I'll say this, like at this point, I just have to trust JD. He did his thing last season with Sauce and Garrett Wilson. Granted, it was 2 top 10 picks, and a lot of fans wanted those two guys, wearing green. But at the end of the day, Will McDonald, I think he projects to the NFL nicely.
Yeah, and I think you said the great point there that last year, all the Jets fans, we wanted Sauce, we wanted Garrett Wilson, and
Mhm.
not to mention Jermaine Johnson. So when it happened, it was kind of this excitement, like we got our guys. This year, we knew about Will McDonald, but nobody had him on the Jets' radar, right? So it's kind of like, wow, all the mock drafts, all those fan bases doing all these mock drafts predicting who the Jets going to go with in the first round. Nobody had Will McDonald going there. So I think that's why the shock factor kicked in for Jets fans, because we did not expect to go edge rusher. And I think Will McDonald is a really good player for this Jets defense in the perspective of getting that closer. Like we saw Bryce Huff last year be that pass rush specialist closer, and we saw him close the deal against the Buffalo Bills when he strip sacked Josh Allen. I think that's what the Jets really want from Will McDonald, is to put him out there late in the fourth quarter, be that closer that can really help the Jets go up against all these top-tier quarterbacks. I mean, we got to get through Josh Allen in a division, Patrick Mahomes this season, and a lot of stacked quarterbacks are obviously in the AFC. So I think that's really where the Jets are looking at it, because we heard from Saleh and Douglas say we're expected to have a lot of leads this year heading into the fourth quarter because someone named Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, man, of course. And like another thing too, it's like next season, if Lawson isn't really in the mix, now all of a sudden McDonald has like a year under his belt where there wasn't like a ton of pressure, like, oh, you have to go get 10 sacks, his rookie year or anything like that. Like, I feel like there's that pressure for like those edge rushers taken in the top 10, like, last season, Thibodeau, Aiden Hutchinson, like there's pressure on those guys immediately to attack quarterbacks, stop the run, really, set the edge on the D line. This year, though, with McDonald, it's kind of like, okay, mid first round pick, doesn't have to start right away. He can get like a year of like seasoning under his belt. And then next season, hopefully, along with Jermaine Johnson, like just fully take the reins.
I agree, man. We got William bringing in a $2 donation, says Jets Central is a legend. Go Jets and Knicks in 6. Shout out William, man. Thinks you're a legend.
Thanks, William. I appreciate that, dude. Thank you.
Appreciate you, William, as always. And yes, Knicks in 6. I hope so. I wish I could be more optimistic about that one. But let's move down to the second round. We got Joe Tippmann. Now, me personally, I have been asking the Jets to draft a center since Nick Mangold retired. So it feels good that we finally got a guy that I feel confident to go in there and potentially win the starting job over Connor McGovern. We'll see how that competition goes out. So what was your overall thoughts of Joe Tippmann as a prospect? Did you have him as your number one center in the draft, and your overall reaction and your expectations from him?
Yeah, so for me, it's an A pick. Obviously the Jets brought back McGovern on a cheap 1-year contract. I wasn't expecting him to take that like amount of money. I was thinking McGovern was at least going to get like 5 million, but what was it? It was just over 1, right?
Yeah.
I know for a fact it was under 2.
It was like backup money.
Yeah, it was insane. So he gets brought back. So I was thinking like, okay, maybe center isn't going to be taken here, but they take Tippmann anyway. And this is a guy to me that I think when we're talking about short term, potentially, but definitely long term, he's going to be the answer there. I don't see a situation where Tippmann comes in and it's just horrible, or he's going to be replaced after 2-3 seasons. Not really the case at all. I really like Tippmann as a prospect. I did like John Michael Schmitz a little bit better, but it's like splitting hairs. I really liked both guys. If the Jets wound up with either guy, I think JMS wound up with the Giants, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
But yeah, in any case, I mean, I love the pick there. I think, maybe you could have argued like wide receiver or like a bigger position of need, safety or something like that. Brian Branch was still on the board. But at the end of the day, I think Tippmann projects to the Jets system really well. Obviously, a massive, massive human being, 6'6", I forget the weight, which is big for a center. But hey, if the Jets feel like, he can step in like immediately and do a good job and beat McGovern out, then awesome. If he doesn't, then it's still it's kind of a good problem to have. Either way, you have a solid option at the center position, as opposed to having to throw somebody out there early, somebody that might not be ready, more so developmental guys. So for me, it's an A.
Yeah, I agree, man. I've really wanted a center, and when we did re-sign Connor McGovern, I was like, okay, all right, maybe center's not a big position of need, but they still wanted Connor McGovern in the building, and I think their perception of it was Connor McGovern could help develop Joe Tippmann and be someone that can really ease his way into the transition of things. And I love that Joe Douglas's offensive line is finally coming together, especially for the future. Elijah Vera-Tucker is our young stud that we're hopeful will be healthy this season. Mekhi Becton has a contract year coming up, and then you add Joe Tippmann to the mix. Those are 3 guys that Jets fans are very excited about that we got early in the draft. We go out there, get Carter Warren out of Pitt. Max Mitchell looked really good last year as a 4th-round rookie. So there are some youthful, pieces to the offensive line, and we got the veterans like Dwayne Brown. So what's your overall thoughts of the offensive line depth going into the season? Because I think this is the deepest offensive line we've seen in a long time under Joe Douglas.
Yeah, it was definitely better than last season. Like we all saw what happened last year with Becton, Max Mitchell with the blood clots, Dwayne Brown missed time with the shoulder. I believe George Fant missed some time too with injury. AVT gets bounced out the tackle. He ends up getting hurt. Like it was just a complete nightmare last season. I felt like every week it was like a different lineup for the most part, especially early on. Herabig was the guy who I thought the Jets were going to bring back, but he ended up signing the multi-year deal with Pittsburgh. But yeah, I think overall on the inside, I feel pretty good. Laken Tomlinson, I kind of want to step up a little bit because of what he's being paid. I mean, he's being paid like one of the top guards in all of football, and the production last season to me didn't really match that. So hopefully he can step up. But yeah, center, I feel great. AVT, I feel great. We have guys at tackle. I'm a little worried on like rust factor with a couple of them. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of like projecting, who's going to look like the same exact player before the injury. Does somebody get hurt again? I don't really want to go down that path just because it's like too hypothetical, if that makes sense. But I think just names on paper were okay for now.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think the open competition at the tackle spot is going to be really intriguing to me because Mekhi Becton's going into a contract year. We're expecting him to win one of those 2 spots. Dwayne Brown is a seasoned veteran. We bring in Billy Turner. Max Mitchell looked really good as a rookie last year, and Cedric Ogbuye. So if you could project, obviously we don't know because there's a lot that has to go into training camp. Who do you think has the most likely chances to be the starting left tackle and right tackle for week 1, assuming everyone's healthy?
Man, left tackle, I'm going to say Dwayne Brown just because he's the veteran. I doubt he would come back like post injury here. Post injury, being in his late 30s, to just sit on the bench for an entire season or to get beat out by like a younger player. And then with right tackle, man, I want to say Mekhi Becton, but if it's not going to be Becton, I'm going to say Billy Turner.
Yeah, man.
But Becton is just such a big question mark. And by the way, the AC unit just kicked on. I don't know if you can hear it through the mic if it's like super loud.
No, you're good.
Are we good?
Yeah,
all right, cool.
Yeah, Billy Turner is an interesting one because he was the right tackle for Aaron Rodgers during his MVP season, and he's a veteran, and he knows his system. And I think that's a very underrated piece, and we're going to get into those signings in terms of all the veterans later on. But before we do that, I do want to get back into the draft. Now, who's your sleeper of this draft class? We talked about Will McDonald. We talked about Joe Tippmann. Now, in terms of the later rounds in value, who really stands out to you the most in terms of that could be like the sleeper of this Jets team? Maybe not impactful right out of the gate as a rookie, but even long-term wise, that can really be impactful players for this organization.
Yeah, I like Converse. It was, I believe, round 6, second pick in round 6. I think, well, right off the bat, he comes in at like a position of need, like a third developmental safety. I don't know how you feel about Ashton Davis. Personally, I'm kind of out on. I can't really envision a situation where he steps in after Whitehead or Clark leaves and he's like the starting safety for the next 5 seasons. To me, I just feel like he's always, at least with the Jets, probably going to remain a backup. But with Converse, it's like you're getting a lot of experience, right? 4 seasons at Oklahoma State, 1 season at LSU. You're getting a lot of athletic ability. You're getting upside. You're getting positional versatility. You can play safety or corner. He's lined up at outside corner, inside corner, and, obviously safety here. So I think in the late rounds, that's somebody who's going to come in a little bit more polished than somebody that's only played 1 or 2 seasons in college football. And, round 6, we're not really like drafting starters there. We're drafting guys that like fit the system, fit the culture, guys that can maybe make an impact immediately on special teams and then hopefully grow into starters, one day, maybe a year or 2 from now. So that's probably for me, my sleeper.
I love that. I actually love that because I feel like not a lot of Jets fans are talking about him. The conception is, Izzy's the sleeper, or even Zach Kuntz is the sleeper. But, you bring up an interesting prospect, and I love the experience factor. And you also got to consider the Jets have been drafting pretty darn well in terms of corners late. Brendan Eccles, I think, is a quality backup. Michael Carter, the second we got in the 5th round, who was our starting in the slot. And then Eccles, like I mentioned, he was in the 6th round as well. So I think this Jets coaching staff, especially the defensive backs coaches, have been sensational this season.
And Hall, too. Yeah, Bryce Hall too. It's another quality player. He's not like elite, but he's like a damn good backup.
Yeah, and we had Hall and Eccles be starters in the year number 1 with Saleh, to the point where I didn't think cornerback was a giant need going into last offseason, but I guess the Jets had other plans, and I'm happy they did have other plans because they upgraded the position with Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, and then they said, hey, now we have a full year of experience with Hall and Eccles as depth options. So they're doing a great job, and I think, Bernard Converse is another piece. So you think he's very versatile. He could play outside corner, slot, safety, special teams. So you project him more as a safety?
Yeah, I think so. That's based off of like overall depth chart wise. Like, corner, you were just rattling off all these like beasts at corner. I don't think the Jets were going to go out and select, a 5th or 6th corner in the 6th round. I think for me, when I'm looking at safety, it's pretty thin with Whitehead and Clark, 2 guys I like, but behind them, it's like, man, LaMarcus Joyner didn't get brought back. I guess apparently, I guess he's still out there and he could still resign. But just as like a long-term developmental guy, I do like him at safety.
Yeah, I think so too, man. He's long. I like that pick too, man. So let's get into Aaron Rodgers. Okay, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a Jet. Has that sunk in yet to you? And we're seeing Aaron Rodgers go on tour around New York City last week when he first was introduced. It's been a couple of weeks where we can finally digest it. Like, how does it feel that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback for the New York Jets?
It honestly is like a little crazy. I remember watching the introductory press conference, and I'm thinking, like, Rodgers is sitting there doing this, like answering questions as the Jets quarterback. He's wearing a Jets t-shirt. It's not like a Photoshop picture. This isn't like another rumor. It's not another like per sources report or anything like that. Like, it's legit. It's happening. Like, he's a Jet. The trade went through. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, hiccups, or anything like that. Like, everything is good to go. And to be honest, it still doesn't feel real. I can't really even picture him in a Jet uniform. So training camp and whatnot, preseason. Well, he's probably not even going to play in preseason, but I can't wait, man.
Don't you love that Aaron Rodgers just seems very happy and just seems like he's taking on this new change in his life with such a positive energy approach where you're just seeing a huge smile on his face. He's loving the traveling around New York City, going to Knicks games. And I just feel like he has a new thing in his life that he gets really excited about at this stage of his career, going into a new organization. It feels like a first day of school for him. So what's your overall expectations for Aaron Rodgers this season? Do you think he has what it takes to go back to his MVP form, which, by the way, wasn't too long ago? Or do you think he's going to have like an above-average season? Because I don't think we need Rodgers to be an MVP in order to be a successful team because of how good we are around him. But I also think that an Aaron Rodgers with the chip on his shoulder, anything can happen. So what's your overall thoughts and expectations for Aaron Rodgers this season with all the offensive pieces around him, with Nathaniel Hackett, a guy he's very familiar with, calling the plays?
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a lot. Like, I don't think you hire Hackett, you bring in all of Rodgers' guys, you trade up, or you trade all these assets to Green Bay, and then all of a sudden he becomes like a game manager. For me, I'm thinking like 35 plus touchdown passes, limited INTs. I want to say like 10 or under, somewhere in that range. I know my hopes are high here, but it's like, it's Aaron Rodgers we're talking about. We're not talking about like Joe Flacco or Mike White or Zach Wilson or something like that, like hoping for the best. And we were talking a little bit before the show kicked off. Like, this is A-Rod. He's a top 5, top 6 quarterback in football, still at 39 years old. This guy's elite, so, for given what the Jets gave up for him, I'm not expecting like 21 TDs, 14 picks or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I really want a lot of production there, but I do think the offense is going to be like tailored towards the running game. And I don't think it's going to be like Rodgers having to do everything. Like, hey, we have A-Rod, go win us every single game kind of situation. I felt like that was kind of the case with Green Bay for a couple seasons, where he just didn't have enough help. And the defense, the defensive production wasn't really there. But no, I'm expecting a lot.
Yeah, and even last season in Aaron Rodgers' down year, 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. As a Jets fan, it's like, I take that, even though we were expecting more from him, right? Like, his down year is a year that Jets fans have been waiting to have a quarterback for years.
Yeah, and he had the broken thumb, too.
And he did not, first year without Hackett in a while, first year without Davante Adams in a while.
Yep.
So now when it talks about the weapons around Aaron Rodgers, he's got the familiar face in Allen Lazard. We bring in Randall Cobb, who I think is such an important signing with this team, more for the off the field and installment of the offense and to kind of get everybody on the same page as Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if you saw the clip, but Randall Cobb was speaking to Woody Johnson when he was signed, and this is my favorite thing I heard Randall Cobb say. I'm here to be Aaron Rodgers' translator, to kind of really bring Garrett Wilson underneath his wing. Yeah, this is where Aaron Rodgers wants you to be here. Kind of get everybody on the same page of where Aaron Rodgers expects the wide receivers to be in certain situations. So what's your overall thoughts of the playmakers around Aaron Rodgers, and are they good enough and deep enough to really go all in this season to go for a run?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we look at, like, we just go down like a checklist. Like, do we have size there? Yes. Do we have youth there? Yes. Explosiveness? Yes. Do we have guys that fit the system, fit the route tree, what Nathaniel Hackett wants to call? Yes. Do we have guys that have experience working with Rodgers, working with Hackett? Yes. And then also, looking at the running backs too and tight ends, like we're solid there. We don't have like this major Achilles heel. I guess, if we start getting banged up on the O-line or a tackle or something like that, maybe there. But as far as like playmakers, weapons in the offense, I think there's literally more than enough.
Yeah, man, I really think so too. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. And Aaron Rodgers said it himself, though. Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, both number 17. I don't know if he's going to put up Davante Adams level numbers, but I think Aaron Rodgers has an idea that, yeah, this kid's special. He said on the Pat McAfee show that he goes in and out of his breaks differently. He's a special kid, and I think Garrett Wilson is poised to break out like a Davante Adams number 1 level receiver. Everardo comes in with a $2 super chat. Appreciate you, my man. Give us your Jets win total. Okay. You're on the spot now, Ian. Jets win total.
Yeah, so I think it's right. I'll say this, for Thursday or Friday, I'll have a better answer for you because the schedule actually, if we start the season off like 2 or 3 straight road games, or, it's always weird. Like, when's the bye week? I mean, we've been screwed with the bye week. Not, I don't necessarily remember if it was last season, but I remember one year it was like extremely early in the year. But
Yeah.
no, in any case, I mean, the AFC is good. I know we play the Chiefs, and Miami's gotten better, and I think for me with Rodgers, like I want to say 12 wins, but I know that's such a high, like fantastic teams, like elite teams can't even get to 12 wins sometimes. So I think for me, 11, I mean, it's definitely higher than 10. So like, I guess 11 and a half is kind of the over under for me.
Yeah, Vegas has it at 9.5. So I think, and listen, when people ask me this question, I'm thinking to myself, wow, I could confidently say I think this Jets team can win 12 games. And if everything clicks, 13. And then I catch myself like, whoa, expectations are really freaking high. And that brings me to the next point that we were talking about a little bit before the show. Usually, Jets fans going into seasons, and we'll talk about last year, what were the expectations for us? Well, maybe we can play meaningful games in December, and maybe we can somehow just show signs of improvement and show that Zach Wilson's hopefully the guy, which obviously didn't work out for us. Maybe Robert Saleh will prove to be our head coach. And hey, we did get to the meaningful games in December, but we lost all of the games. This year is different. Expectations are playoffs, right? So, like, if we miss the playoffs, it's going to be a big disappointment. So, my question to you is, how do you think this young Jets team, mixed with all these veterans, are going to be able to handle the bright lights? Because the pressure is going to be through the roof. There's rumor that the Jets are going to be on 5 to 6 primetime games. A lot of people in the NFL media are picking the Jets as Super Bowl favorites, which is like, what? The Jets Super Bowl contenders? I mean, we're not used to that talk in the national light. We're usually the guys that are people like, oh, they're the Jets. They're going to be the same old Jets this year. But not even Jets fans from the NFL media and the NFL scope from an objective point of views are seeing the Jets as Super Bowl contenders. So do you think this team, from a mental standpoint, has what it takes to live up to these expectations and shine when the lights get the brightest?
Yeah, man, it's a great question. I think for me, the answer is like they better,
Yeah, right.
like Joe Douglas has been here for years. This isn't like year one, year two. Like he's been here he was hired in 2019. So he's had like a lot of free agency. He spent a lot of money, not including this year's free agency class. I know he spent over $300 million on the roster. Um, he's had some poor picks on, the offensive line and obviously Zach Wilson, all that kind of stuff. But Douglas has been here for years. It's year 3 of Robert Saleh. We've upgraded the roster. We've rookies of the year. Aaron Rodgers coming in the mix, veteran leaders with Cobb and Mosley, like Carl Lawson. Like I feel like this team has more than enough to get to the playoffs. Personally, if we get to the playoffs and get bounced in round 1, I'm going to be disappointed. You don't trade for a 39-year-old quarterback if you're thinking like, hopefully we can just get back to the wild card round, and we'll just get bounced by Jacksonville, bounced by whoever it is. Like, no, I'm thinking AFC Championship bare minimum. Like that's my mindset. You don't take on the money, you don't give away the picks. If you're just hoping for like a 1-year thing, like let's just try to get relevant and break that curse that everybody's always, or that streak that everybody's always talking about, like the longest, whatever it is, the franchise with the least amount of playoff appearance. I don't even remember what the thing is, but the Kings just broke it. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, longest playoff drought to be in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I'm thinking AFC Championship. And the bottom line is like this team, like it's Joe Douglas's team. It's Robert Saleh's team. They took a shot at like the previous regime. Saleh did. I think it was last season, midway through the year, where he said that, they took over it's like an expansion team pretty much, like with the amount of talent on the roster. So it's like, it's time. They better make the playoffs. They better do damage in the playoffs because it's been years that these guys have been in control.
Yeah, I agree. I think expectations for this fan base is going to be the highest it's been in I don't know how long, maybe since the 2009, 2010 team, which was the last time we were in the playoffs, which is the longest playoff drought in not the NFL, but in sports, in the North American sports. That needs to change this season. Guys, if you're enjoying the show here with Jet Central, do your boys favor right now by simply hitting that like button and subscribing to my man Ian at Jet Central down below. I'm assuming you're all subscribed to him by now, but if you're not, his channel's linked down below in the description. We appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into the chat as always. I think that this team is built to win now. And I think it was a really good timing for this organization to go all in, to put all the pieces. Because don't you feel like Woody Johnson has always, as an owner, been, yeah, let's go all in, at the wrong times? I feel like now it feels like it makes sense to go all in. With the draft class that they had last year with Sauce and Garrett, with all the young studs that we have on rookie deals, this is the time. The window is now. So, like, do you think that this was the aggressive time to go after Aaron Rodgers in a positive light? Because I don't think that there's ever been a better chance for this Jets team to go all for a Super Bowl than there is right now.
Yeah, it's I think you hit the nail right on the head. Like it's the perfect time. Like for me, whether it's NFL, NBA, MLB too, even like I think the idea is like reload, rebuild the roster, get some young talent in the building, slowly get better, slowly grow and develop, reach a point where you're like right on the cusp of, making the playoffs. Maybe you get into the playoffs and get bounced immediately. Like you're a good team, you're respected around the league. Everybody knows you, like the team isn't isn't garbage. It's not just lucky wins. Like this is a formidable, respectable team. That's the sweet spot when you don't have to pay Garrett Wilson 20 something $million a season, when you're not making Sauce Gardner the highest paid cornerback in football. Like this is the time to strike. Just like you said, you don't, like last season, if we were to, we would have gotten Rodgers, I think it would have been a little premature coming off whatever it was, the 4-win season, or well, I think it was the 4-win season. I think a year too late. Like if we just didn't make a move this, offseason and rolled with Zach or Mike White or whoever it was, I think it would have been a little too late, because it's like, hey, if the Jets miss the playoffs again, then JD and Salah are probably out of jobs. So this was the perfect time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. And like you said, if the Jets went after Aaron Rodgers 3 years ago, then I'd be like, what are we doing? Like what?
Yeah.
Then he'd be looking at as like the savior. Come help us, Rodgers. Put the team on our back. Well, it doesn't feel like that right now, right? It doesn't feel like Rodgers is coming here and he has to put the whole team on his back. He just needs to play complimentary football, be clutch in clutch situations, and not turn the ball over, and let the team around him kind of ball out, in the defense in particular.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on.
So Alvarado comes with another super chat before we finish off the show. Says, who's your favorite undrafted free agent? So there's quite a few that the Jets brought in. We know that the Jets love their undrafted free agents. In previous classes, we got Bryce Huff, Javelin Guidry, just to name a few. Even Lawrence Cager comes to mind. Tony Adams, another guy that impacted last year. Zonovan Knight. So this year, Ian, anybody stand out to you that you think could potentially make the 53-man roster this year?
I'm going to say, like, I really like EJ Jenkins. He's a big 6'7", 6'8" wide receiver / tight end from Georgia Tech and South Carolina. Just the catch radius. I mean, he can literally step into the Jets wide receiving room and just tower over guys. Corey Davis' size, Denzel Mims has size, Alan Lazard has size, but Jenkins is bigger than all of those guys. So that's a guy who I'm excited about. Never really had like a ton of nobody ever said he was like a top 10 college wide receiver or anything like that, but based purely off potential and what I think he could do in preseason is pretty exciting.
Yeah, he is a big body, 6'7". How about that? We got EJ Jenkins and then Zach Kuntz, kind of like same height, but different styles of weapons, right? Kuntz is that athletic guy that is just like twitchy and stuff, and then Jenkins that go up and get that ball. So before we let you go, I'm going to hit you with some quick rapid fire questions. Now, the trending topic right now amongst Jets fans is this: when will the Jets extend Quinnen Williams? So what's your gut tell you? Is this going to happen? Are you optimistic, or do you think this is going to be one of those Jets things that might drag on?
Gosh, man, like, I want to be optimistic about it. I think it will get done, but it's just like, man, I thought that a month ago. I thought that 2 months ago. I thought it 3. Like, that's the first thing that I felt like was like when the season ended, right? Obviously, it was super disappointing. I was thinking, okay, well, what are the bright spots? Rookies of the year, Quinnen Williams, all pro, trending in the right direction, another draft class. Like, we had things to look forward to. We had some bright spots in the season. And then it's like, okay, Quinnen wants to be paid. And I think it was in his exit interview where he said, like, hey, I think I'm shooting for like 21 million or something like that. The Jets can afford that. That's not out of this world. That's not saying, hey, I want 35 million or any. I want to be the highest paid defensive player ever. I felt like Quinnen's ask was completely reasonable, especially coming off the season that he had. And also understanding that he's like a homegrown guy. Like we picked him third
Exactly.
overall, and he's finally like reached this point where it's just like he's literally one of the best defensive tackles in the league. And I felt like again that was like the first thing that was going to get done like before free agency and whatnot. And then it didn't really happen. Weeks go by, we're talking about quarterbacks, and the Jets are interested in this guy, this guy, this guy. Aaron Rodgers rumors started, happening, and I felt like Quinnen just got put on the back burner. Rodgers thing has been done for a couple weeks now, and it's like, man, reading the Samini report, assuming it's true, it's like they're not even close. We've seen like other D tackles sign for like big contracts. I think Jeffrey Simmons is the highest at like 24.5 mil a season. And now it's like, man, the longer the Jets have, because the Jets have waited this long, now we're looking like, an extra 3-4 million more a year than what he pretty much wanted going in. So is it the end of the world? No, I do think it'll get done, but I don't want to be in a situation where it's like, okay, one of our arguably the biggest bright spot of the team last season is now being like being shown like the cold shoulder now that like Aaron Rodgers is like the new shiny toy. So I'm hoping he gets paid soon.
I agree, man. It's also like something that it sets a standard for this organization. It's going to send a message to guys like Sauce, Garrett Wilson, where if you get drafted here and you develop and you break out by year 3, year 4, and you're a first team all pro like Quinnen was, we're going to take care of you. We're going to pay you. And that's what I think needs to happen. It needs to set a precedent because Quinnen Williams deserves it, man. This defensive line would be good without him, but they would not be elite without him because he is a difference maker. So my final question to you, this is a fun one. Now, Jets players poised to break out on offense and defense. So give me one guy on offense that comes to mind that you think is going to break out and light it up, and somebody on defense that you think maybe some Jets fans are underlooking, or maybe it's someone that is just guaranteed to break out. Who do you think? Who first comes to your mind when I mention poised to break out on offense and defense?
Man, I really want to say Brees Hall. The whole injury thing, of course, is like a big question mark, but just looking at the touches, that he's going to get in the running game, that mixed with having like legitimate weapons all over the field, right, left, up the middle, like everything is good, having got like talented guys behind him. I think it's just going to free Brees Hall up even more, like in the passing game. And assuming we have Aaron Rodgers, there's going to be a lot of attention being paid to him, so we can, get Brees Hall out in the flat. We can just flip little like screen passes to him. And again, looking at the offensive line, I'm hoping here, got my fingers crossed, that we're not as banged up. So if we have guys like AVT and Lakin gets a little bit better, and we have some stability at tackle, and maybe Tippmann comes in and is the man, like he's like one of the better centers in football. Now all of a sudden, I feel like the offensive line in front of Brees is better. So I want to say Brees Hall can really be just that bell cow back, just easy 1,000 rushing yards in the season, hopefully a little bit more, as along with a decent amount of receiving yards and help out of the backfield. But of course, the injury, I not a doctor, wish I was, but if Brees Hall isn't like ready to go by the start of the season, or they want to like slowly ease him back into like week 4, and it's like, okay, we're finally starting to see like Brees Hall become like what we wanted him to be. I just don't really know the timetable on that.
What about
and then
defense?
yeah. So defense, I'm gonna say, man, there's a lot of guys that I really like. I want to see Quincy Williams.
Still mine.
He's one of my favorites, and he signed that multi-year deal. I think that Joe Douglas would not go out and offer him a 3-year contract if he didn't have a legitimate role within the defense. He brings a lot of fire. I feel like he's a tackling machine, and he seems to get better with time. So him or Chuck Clark.
I love it. Quincy Williams was my original pick, so I'm going to switch it up on defense. I'm going to go at year 2, Jermaine Johnson breaking out. I think that, year 1, he kind of was the afterthought because of the stars of Sauce and Garrett Wilson and Brees, which is okay. Not everybody breaks out in year 1. I think Jermaine's poised for a breakout. And on offense, I think Alan Lazard is going to have a career year with the Jets. Just comparing his career numbers with the Green Bay Packers, I think he has a chance to get like 800 plus, 900, borderline 1,000 yards if he stays healthy with this Jets team. I don't think he's, Garrett Wilson's going to get the number one targets, but I think Allen Lazard's going to become the number 2 receiver and is going to be impactful. The chemistry's there, the continuity, the system's there. And I also got to give a shout out to McCall Hardman because I think he was breaking out with the Chiefs before he got injured last year, and I'm happy we got him because he's an explosive player, and I cannot wait to see what they do. So that's going to wrap up this show, guys. Everybody in the chat, make sure you do me a favor right now by simply going down in the description and clicking the link and subscribing to my man Ian at Jet Central if you're not already. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. Also, if you guys enjoy the show and want to see Jet Central hop on a little bit more often, please do your boy a favor by simply hitting that thumbs up button. Let's get to 100 likes if you guys are enjoying the show. Let's run it up if you're enjoying the show, baby. We appreciate you guys. Jet Central, always a pleasure to have you on the show, my man. You do great stuff, great work. Been following you since the beginning. Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap things up to Jets fans?
Nah, man, just I appreciate you taking the time and having me on. Definitely have to do it again.
Absolutely, man. You're always welcome on the show. Everybody in the chat, we appreciate you guys tuning in. That does it for this one, and we'll catch you guys next time. Let's go, Jets!